Before she was a warning, before she was a wail in the night, Maria Xochitl Tecuani was just a woman trying to survive the end of her world. You see, she met him after the Spaniards arrived, Don Alonso de Rivas, an officer moving freely through a city, already dying. He spoke of order, of protection, a future under a new God. To Maria, he was safety. To him, she was temporary. He took her quietly, loved her secretly, and when children were born, he told her they would matter. That once the fighting was over, once the city fell, he would claim them. See, he was the Spanish, and the people we're talking about was the Aztecs. And Maria believed him, because believing was easier than surviving alone. Then came the truth. Don Alonso returned one night with the soldiers behind him and fear in his eyes. He told Maria the children could never be acknowledged, that mixed blood would make them targets, that the church would take them, that the soldiers would not be kind. And if she resisted, they would all disappear. By then, the canals were clogged with bodies, the temples burned, hunger howled louder than the prayers. And on the night of August 12th, 1521, as Tenochtitlan faced its final hours, Maria made a decision no mother should ever have to make. She walked her children to the edge of Lake Texcoco, the same water that fed the city, now dark with ash. Some say she prayed to old gods. Some say she begged for a new one. Some say she believed the water would take her children somewhere safer than the world that awaited her. By morning, when the city officially fell, the children were gone. Maria was seen walking into the lake after them, but she never crossed over. Instead, the water gave something back. You see, the nights that followed, survivors heard a woman crying along the canals, calling out, not in Spanish, but in Nahuatl, not screaming, mourning. She wasn't asking forgiveness. She wasn't searching. And they gave her a name, La Llorona. They say she still walks the water's edge to this day, trapped between what she did and what was taken from her. And if you hear her crying for your children, it's already too late.
What do you see when you're in the dark?
Welcome to Buried Stories. I'm Jeff Mercurio, along with Steve Mercurio and Wendell Brown. Steve, tell us a little bit about La Llorona.
Well, upon the research that I've performed, this is a very strong Hispanic American folklore. This dates back tremendously. Some reports even stated potentially the iconography of La Llorona dates back even potentially further than the Aztecs from what I've found. This is the type of folklore that goes all the way up into parts of North America, New Mexico, California, parts of Texas, all the way down to the tip of South Africa or South America. This is told by many names, mostly La Llorona, but upon research, there were many names given to her. Some of the tales were similar, some of the tales were a little bit different, but I think all the continuous things that you had found was a crying woman. Some say she was a warning. Some say she was a vengeful spirit, particularly wearing a white dress. That seemed to be universal. Most of the information I found was that she was crying for her children. The main story that I had found stated that she had drowned her own children, whether it was in jealous rage. Some say it was to protect her own children. And she essentially wanders the afterlife crying and looking for her own children.
So she's dressed in white and she's mostly seen around water. Correct?
Absolutely.
Correct.
Absolutely. Water, wet dress, wet white
Yes.
dress was
Yeah.
mentioned multiple times. Yeah.
Wendell, do you got stories from North America or some of the folklore from North America?
Well, yeah, and probably includes some on the from Mexico too. But the like Steve said, she in a jealous rage, I think more of temporary insanity. If you've ever seen it, this lady had it. Um, she drowned her children and then instantly regretted it. And then they found her dead not long after. And the story goes that when she went to heaven, God asked about her children and then wouldn't let her in. And she was doomed to walk between the planes for eternity. So, and rumor has it that she tries to steal children. She tries to, drown children. And it's even advanced to drowning anybody, men for what her husband did, um, and women just to have them join in her agony. And, and then children, of course, to join her children or help look for them. There's a little sideline where she gets if if she gets you, you get on her plane and you help her search for her children for eternity. Um, I like it. It's a typical ghost story. It's a good one. It's a boogeyman story. It's used in Mexico to keep children straight. Tell them not to
That's
go
I've
out.
heard that. Yeah.
It's a story to keep them from not staying out too late, not to go hang out by the river. Um, there's a really hair-raising, scary story about um, a young girl that her grandma told her the story and she gaffed it off and then went out, stuck outside, went by the river and disappeared. And all they found was a sandal and a white veil. And then her little brother, um, saw her at his window, almost like if you've ever seen, what's the vampire show? The Stephen King vampire show where the kid scratches on the window. Have you seen, you know what I'm talking about?
I'm,
Um,
Wow.
I'm trying to remember this.
um,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Salem's Lot.
Yeah,
No,
what a
yeah. All right.
classic. What a classic.
Yeah, sort of like an episode like that. She came back and tried to lure her brother outside,
Uh,
and the father came in and turned on the light, and everything disappeared. And the only thing they found was like a wet puddle outside the window. So, um, it's interesting. I like I said, I really get psyched for it. I think it's an awesome story. How true we were talking. How true do you guys think it is, that Bloody Mary thing? Would you guys stand in front of a mirror and do that? How true is it to summon a djinn and whatever the verbiage may be? Or how true is it to summon a demon? Would you stand in front of a mirror and do what you got to do? Your three Beetlejuices or whatever. I think this story is as true as that. It's as true as people believe it is.
right.
And, um, Jeff, like I said, even I got a family member uh, that was told these stories when she was young. And the so do I think it's real? I really do think it's real. And as far as nature, you're going to hear sounds out in nature, and
Oh, yeah.
you might call it the wailing woman or whatever. Uh, but someday it may be her. Who knows? I think she's the basis for the Conjuring movies, isn't she?
Yeah, there
Uh,
is a La Llorona movie that follows The
yeah,
Conjuring.
and they're. I mean, you can let your mind go astray on this and really generate a lot of fear. So, um, do I believe it? Maybe I would believe it more how it's been told in legend than any other thing. I don't know about the separate incidents of things, people disappearing, but people have disappeared.
Yeah.
Now whether she was involved or not, but It's just sort of like one of those lores of what is it, the Chicabra or something down in Mexico?
Chupacabra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, but I would say from all research on it that she was actually a real person. And yeah, I'd believe it as much as I wouldn't believe it. Just depends on if I'm out in the woods by myself and, by a river. And, when it's like seeing an unidentified flying object, probably nobody's going to believe you that you heard her. But
Right.
the story goes that if you hear her and she sounds far away, she's close by.
Yeah, she reverses. Yeah, I
Yeah,
thought that was interesting.
if you hear her and she sounds close by, run.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I that's pretty, it's pretty awe-inspiring story. So I'd give as much credit as anybody else as far as boogeyman stories.
This one has stood the test of time too. It's been handed down for
Absolutely.
for a long time. So a lot of this folklore is based on some incident happening. And from this Maria Xochitl Tecuani, that might be her. You never know. I do have a couple stories from Mexico. There was a Xochimilco boatman, and he used to tell this story in mid 20th century. Late one night after ferrying his last passenger, he was pointing his boat through a narrow canal when the air suddenly went still. No insects, no birds, just the sound of water. Then he heard it, a woman crying, soft at first, almost like the wind moving through the reeds, and was whispering, "Ay, mis hijos," which means, "Where are my children?"
Children.
He assumed it was a drunk woman or someone lost. As he pushed closer, the crying grew quieter, even though the sound should have been louder. His skin started prickling because, like you said, if she's loud, she's either far away, and if she's soft, she's right there. So ahead of him, standing on the water itself, was a woman in a long white dress. Her feet did not disturb the surface. Her hair was hung over her face like wet seaweed. He froze. She slowly lifted her head, but her face was empty, like a skull wrapped in skin. When she screamed, it wasn't human. The sound echoed off the canal like it was from everywhere at once. The man jumped into the water and swam to shore, abandoned his boat. Locals later found it drifting in circles. He never worked nights again, so after that he was done. So that's one of the stories from Mexico. And the one thing that you brought up, Wendell, is when you, Steve, went on that ghost hunt, and I forgot exactly which one where you guys were at the
The
cemetery.
graveyard. Yes.
The
Yeah, it was
graveyard.
the Fairfield County Infirmary. Yeah.
Right. And repeat what Dom saw that.
Yeah, retell your
spooked him.
story there so everybody
Yeah,
understands.
so we were up on a portion of there's a huge hill on the back of Fairfield County Infirmary. And what's been stated is that when it was a working farm, there were thousands of people who had passed away over the years, all of the years of its operation. And one of the things that stand out is that they were buried vertically, because they wanted to fit more bodies in this graveyard. So that would allow for that. And what's unique about it is there's very few headstones. There's maybe I'd say 2 to 3 in one area, and then there's a one way at the edge of the field that kind of says, as in memory, or something to the effect of in memory to our passed away or our dead, which was supposed to honor all of the people who had passed away and were buried. But we were up there, it was shortly after midnight. First time Dom and I had ever been on a ghost hunt, and I'm just kind of walking around. It's warm out, and next thing you know, Dom's not next to me anymore. And I turn and I look, and he's just darting for the building. He didn't say anything to me. He just took off running. And I'm like, Dom, I'm trying to scream his name like Dom, Dom, Dom. And he's running away. And then what was weird was as he was getting closer to the building, but still up in the cemetery area, he had like changed his direction a little bit, still heading towards the building, but instead of going, this way, he kind of changed his direction. So when I got caught up with him in the building and I came down, I was like, Dom, what happened, man? And what he told me was, as we were kind of heading towards that last gravestone, um, he had turned, and in the back of the area, you have the building on one side, and the back is more kind of like a forested area. He said when he looked that way, he saw a woman in a dress, and this woman was booking it. I mean, he said she was running like the deer. She was just running. And he said he didn't really describe a face. I believe he did describe it could have been a whitish colored maybe dress or something. And he said as soon as he saw it, he started running. And then he said at one point, as he's running towards the building's on this side, but you got to kind of go down the hill over here. He said, next thing you know, she was on this side, which is why he changed his direction.
That's
And
crazy.
he just took off. And I've tried to ask him for more details over the years. And, he swears he knows what he saw. I didn't see it. I was up there
Right.
with him. I was recording. I didn't see anything
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
was up there. But man, my son, boy, he was scared. He was truly scared.
Right along this
Yep.
storylines, a child and her looking for somebody to help hunt for her kids. You ought to show him maybe some of these pictures of like behind me of what her legend and lore is. See if it'd be interesting to see if he said, "Hey, yeah, that looks like her" or something. That'd be neat.
Yeah,
Right.
and one of my favorite things about her legend is that she's cried so much that she doesn't cry tears anymore, and you can see it in your background there, Wendell. She cries blood now. So if you look at her iconography, you'll see she generally has what looks like blood coming from her eyes. Now, I thought that's interesting. I'd heard a story as well, Jeff, and I don't know. Hopefully, I'm not trampling on one of yours, but there was a tale of a kind of a rich kid and her nanny were walking amongst a city in Mexico, and the little kid was acting a fool, was being very bratty. He kept asking for corn, and she kept telling him no. And at one point, he was screaming in the city. He even bit her, and she warned him. She was like, "You keep this behavior up, you're going to see La Llorona. You're going to see her." And he didn't believe any of it. So they go back. He's still pouting in his room. It's just him and his nanny. And he's just throwing a fit in his room, talking about corn and you should have got me corn. And the nanny warned him again, you keep up this behavior, you're going to see La Llorona. Well, he didn't believe it. He kept up acting a fool. And at one point, next thing you know, his door opened and there was La Llorona. Came in. He immediately panicked, started crying, was asking for forgiveness for his behavior. And the nanny supposedly told La Llorona, take him away, take him with you.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a
I thought
scary
that,
story.
yeah, I thought that was a pretty unique story, which kind of goes back to what Wendell was talking about, because some of the themes that I kept seeing is this warning to children, right? Parents utilize this story as a warning to children. And where we see a lot of this is what do we see in North America that we warn our children about? It's a lot less scary, but what tale do we tell our kids? You better behave. You better behave. Anything coming up?
Oh, Santa Claus.
Santa Claus,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Santa Claus. Obviously less scary, although some children would scream just as loud if they saw Santa Claus as they would La Llorona. But, I don't know if you guys have ever touched base on this, but there's also a separate Christmas tale that I feel like is utilized, especially in kind of European countries.
Krampus.
Krampus. Absolutely. And again, these are tales. And what I think is interesting is these are tales. Look, I believe that this story stemmed from real life activities. There are real stories about, it could be this woman that you're talking about, Jeff. There could have been many a times over the history that women have thrown themselves on top of their children or took their children's life in jealous rage, right? So I think it's interesting where what comes and stems from this story, but how it kind of transformed into a folklore story told to our children in a way as a sort of control, a
Yeah.
control of their behaviors.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
I found that
that
interesting.
that and a little bit of a protection. Don't go out at night. Stay away from the water because I mean, this tale could have stemmed from some kid going along the canal, in Mexico, very early, 1521 or whatever you want, and fell in and was lost down the canal. And from then on, because that lady was crying or something, it could have stemmed from something as simple as that. What I did find interesting also is this La Llorona also goes after men too that like don't stay with their wives and stuff.
Hmm.
So goes after men, and in this version she's dressed beautifully and entices the men, and then the men get close, and then that's when her real self comes out. I mean, that skull-like face and stuff like that, and it drives them mad. So it could be for all men going out, trying to look for a little side, but
Yeah,
so
it's hard to come down on yes, I believe, no, I don't believe. All I know is I'm not going to stand in the middle of a pentagram and shout at the devil.
no,
No.
I don't know. There's
right.
no scientific reason for me not to do that, but there's a reason in my head not to do it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think this is the same kind of thing. Um, yeah, I believe if people saw it, they saw it.
Well, it's interesting. This story kind of got me thinking about some other things that might be related, kind of in the twist of her tale. Um, One of the most kind of famous things about her is what? Her wailing over her
Hmm.
children, right? Her wailing and everything. What else wails? What else do we know folklore-wise that wails
The
and is a
banshee,
warning?
the
The
banshee.
banshee, right?
Yeah.
So, on one side of it, you have a screaming woman, wet in a white dress, right? That's screaming and can be seen as a warning, whether it's a warning to behave, whether it's a warning to children not to get too close to water. As we talked about it earlier in the show, right? We talked about if you hear her wailing from a real loud, right, you got to run. But if you hear it, right, wasn't that what you had stated, Wendell?
If she sounds far away, she's close, and if she
Okay.
sounds close, run.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, it'd be interesting to go kind of through what exactly the warnings were with a banshee scream, which is more of a European
Right.
folklore, right? But you see some of the consistencies between these folklore and what they might be used for, warnings, terms of it, just it's just interesting to me that here we are, and I don't know if you guys have ever watched I one of my favorite shows. Boy, do I love it! Paranormal Caught on Video.
I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen
Yeah.
it.
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, it's going season after season. I promise you guys would love it. But it's usually a Travel Channel show, and some of your more famous ghost hunters and whatnot are utilized. And so all they do is they show you a clip, right? Like a clip sent into them, and then they'll have people speak about it, like people who know about the paranormal and stuff. Well, La Llorona has been stated excuse me, multiple times. Uh, so some of the videos that have been taking place down in South America or in Central America, if it involves screaming or something that looks like a woman, the first name that comes out of their mouth is La Llorona.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's been caught up on that show as well, on Paranormal Caught on Video. So it's just interesting how much weight that folklore carries, especially in the Hispanic world. I mean,
Right.
it's huge.
It is kind of amazing. So, what is your take on La Llorona, Steve, as far as the overall? Do you think it's real, or do you think it's just a tale to keep kids in at night, or wayward husbands on the straight and narrow? Do you think there's some teeth in this one?
Say, yeah, I kind of go, here's what I'd say. I kind of go with Wendell on this. Like if I'm somewhere down in anywhere from Southern North America all the way down, to South America. Look, if I'm walking alone on a street near some water, I mean, that probably the first thing I'm thinking, but the last thing I'm trying to invoke, right? Like, I mean, it's just one of those things and it carries weight. Obviously, the Hispanic world has some belief in it, and it roots very deep in their generations, right? Um, Personally, it kind of reminds me, and I actually believe some of these stories is, you always hear the story of the guy who picked up a woman on the side of the road, and it's generally speaking, it's a woman in a dress, right? They usually have a jacket with them. You pick them up, they get in your car, you go drop them off, and the jacket's still in your back seat, and then you stop, you get out, you go knock on the door, and the person is usually a parent who says, "Oh, that was my daughter. She died this many
Right.
years ago." And the person, so I don't know why this story kind of related back to me that because I think that is, they tell that story in every state in America that,
Yeah.
the lonely woman. So do I think that the actual La Llorona itself exists? I think it's based off of something way back when. I think the story has probably changed many times throughout history, but the consistencies remain. Vengeful woman took her children's life, stuck in the afterlife looking, wearing a white dress, wet. All of these things are consistent. So I think it's become something much larger than what it was, but I do think that there's some basis of truth in the story.
Yeah. And as far as I go, I agree with you that there is some truth to the basis of this story. Like I said, I mean, it could have been a kid fell in the water and a woman was screaming, and the rest of the tribe was like, "Don't go out in the water," and she might have went crazy, and tried to take other kids because this tale goes back so far. I don't know when exactly it began, but there's so many sightings too, and if somebody sees something, how am I to argue that they didn't see what they saw? Because we've had sightings ourselves, but so I think this folklore is based on an actual event. I don't know when, but it's been passed down through generations as a warning, and if you see this thing, it's too late. But I do think that it's got some teeth. And Wendell, yourself?
Well, I've just come from the angle of, I believe thoughts can become things. Just like this podcast we do, it was thoughts for years. And now we've put it out. It's actually something real that we do. So our thoughts became something. And I think this is along those same lines. There's no doubt she's real. There's no doubt people use her. People use her for different motivations. And so there's no doubt she's real. They've made her real. And now physically grabbing kids off the street, you know, who knows? I did see a lady drove her 2 kids into a
Yeah.
pond. Um, not it was years ago, but not too far back. Um, which I could why would you ever do that? But uh, this story is very similar to that. So uh, she's definitely real. She has, if she isn't physically real, we have, and the people who believe in her have brought her into our world and they use her. Now, as far as the details of grabbing kids off the street, I don't know. I don't. There's people missing. Explain why they're missing, and you can discount it. If you can't, then she's still a viable option. So,
Gotcha.
Really good one. I wasn't excited about this one when you mentioned it,
Yeah.
but when I researched it, I really like it.
Yeah.
It's scary.
It is.
And my daughter-in-law, who's Hispanic, I asked her if she heard of it, and she immediately came back at me and said,
See?
"Yes."
Yeah. They know.
And she was being told stories when she was a kid.
Wow.
So she's real. She's real enough. Like I said, it's hard to explain. I wouldn't summon the devil for my own reasons, but there's no scientific reason why it would be hurt me, but there is in my mind. Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was La Llorona. We thank you for watching Buried Stories. I'm Jeff Mercurio, along with Steve Mercurio and Wendell Brown. If you enjoyed this podcast, this story, leave a comment below. If you got a story that you'd like to share with us, we'd love to have you on, and we'd love to hear from you. Email us at buriedstories74@gmail.com. Hit that like button, subscribe, and until next time, stay safe.